gentlemen, welcome into In the Bag. I just got real hot on the mic there. That is on me. Welcome in, ABB. How you doing today, sir?
Good, man. Hey, winter is here. It's almost actually it'll be December when everyone's listening to this. So
It's true.
Happy December. Welcome. It is now Christmas, basically.
Ooh.
So hey, I'm looking forward to it. Winter time is my favorite time for disc golf. I think I've said this before. Yes, it's cold. Yes, it hurts your hands a little bit, but there's something about playing in the winter time. Maybe it's when I really started playing in the winter. Like when I first started, that's when I really got into it, like late fall, early winter. So maybe it's nostalgia. Maybe I just like it. You know, from Ohio, man, it's always cold there. So I like the cold.
From Georgia, lived in Alabama for 13 years now at this point. It is indeed not very cold here often, but in preparation for Vlogmas and things like that, I have definitely been filming in the cold and gotten used to it. And it's nice. It's like we're in that like intro to cold weather where you can wear a hoodie, you can wear you can wear something, but you're probably going to build up a little sweat if you're just walking around playing in the course. So I really enjoy that. And one of the things I've been rocking the most is my Flippy disc golf cold weather gear. Brad, you rocking the hoodie today.
Yep.
I'm rocking still the performance wear. This was definitely something that like their original jerseys were all the cotton jerseys. And it was like, oh, when we get to the cold weather, that's going to be perfect. But honestly, I've still been wearing these and it's been just fine. They are performance wear material. They're Sol Pro material, but it's not so thin that like I'm just freezing out there. So very heat conducive. That feels like the right word. I don't know.
This is not a grammar podcast.
Yeah, but really been enjoying it. So we want to say thank you as always to Aaron and Flippy for jumping in, sponsoring the podcast and making this possible. So be sure to check them out, flippydiscgolf.com. There is an in the bag section. There is a foundation section. There's a Robbie C section. There's a Swanky section. So many creators. And I have a feeling that 2024 will be even bigger for them than ever before.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Flippy. Again, grab an in the bag hoodie for the in the bag lover of your choice. You know, it's almost Christmas, and Aaron has a ton of cool sales, and you can save some money using the link in the code below. So thanks, Aaron. Thanks, Flippy. And speaking of Flippy, we've got an interesting guest today. Not interesting, I think a very real guest, which I'm excited to talk about. Again, we don't typically have. I don't get a ton of information, but the little bit that Robbie shared, I'm like, hey, I've been there. And I think maybe a lot of you, maybe all of you, I'll venture to say, have been there at some point. So excited to bring them on.
Come on. Welcoming into the podcast, Mike. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing great.
Glad to have you on. And if you're not video watchers here, if you're just audio, Mike has a nice collection of Simon memorabilia behind him. He has a new time lapse special edition and I think 4 or 5 tilts behind you, right, Mike? Yeah, there's 4 of them behind there. So Mike, obviously a Simon fan.
Yeah. I threw the tilt recently, Mike. Do you and this is a bit of a spoiler, but you have a tilt in your bag. Do you throw it often?
There are occasions. It's my the upside down forehand works for me. And there's a couple holes on some local courses where it just works out perfect. You know, the left hand forehand, the right hand backhand gets me to where gets me around the corner safely, and then I can throw my shot. So,
well, I'm excited. Your bag. So when we bring people, like when I'm going through the applications and things like that, in our old setup, what would happen is I have all these links, and so I have to scroll through, find the link, open it. Okay, this looks like an interesting bag, and then I got to go find the information and how far he throws, stuff like that, and see if it actually adds up, like if it's interesting and it's helpful, kind of a deal. And then there's a lot of bags that are just like, all right, you guys have solved it. Like it looks like a really good bag. Can't really do much here. Mike, your bag is fascinating.
I would say the most interesting bag I've ever seen. I'll say that.
Yeah. Because you just open it and you're immediately like, huh?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
So super, super interesting.
Well, you know my limitations.
Well,
Hey.
it's just hey, I'm gonna jump in. No, I'm not gonna jump in this bag. Let's learn Mike first. But this bag is so interesting. I like almost can't even talk because I'm gonna jump straight in and ask like 400 questions. So let's get to know Mike first.
So, Mike, how long have you been playing disc golf, sir?
Buddy of mine, Adriel, got me into disc golf in March of 21, and it had nothing to do with COVID. I had been working with a major freight railroad, and then I moved to a major passenger railroad, and it allotted me free time. And I'd seen baskets before. My son had gone before, so I'd heard of it, but I knew nothing of it. And he drugged me out there. Not really drugged, but I went out there with him, and I was like, man, this is just like golf, you know. So hopefully I'm better at this than I was at golf. And because when I was in the Air Force, I used to, you know, all the bases had courses, and you'd go out and play, and that was, you know, good enough not to be asked not to come, but bad enough not to be good. So, you know, but kind of the mentality carries right over to disc golf, and I instantly fell in love. And if you looked at my UDisc stats over almost 3 years, I've averaged a round every 3 days. So
that's what I'm talking about.
That's incredible.
And we have a lot of courses to choose from. I think I was counting it up on UDisc. We've got 17 or 18 within an hour and a half. And if you want to go to 2 to 2.5 hours, it's about 25.
Okay. So what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Post Falls, Idaho, which is between Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and Spokane, Washington. So
yeah, okay.
Sinonda country.
Yeah, there you go. That's cool. That's a lot of courses I can relate. We have quite a few here. Robbie, you guys are a little more spread out though, aren't you? In Birmingham.
Yeah, I would say it's like I have about 12 to 14 within 25 to 35 minutes. I only have 2 within like 10 minutes of me. And then I got to drive 25 to 30 minutes to get to a whole heap of other courses. And then it's another hour past that, but it only adds like 4 courses. So it's like I'm, oh man, really great. And then I'm just like, I'm driving. But the other thing is, I always find this fascinating in your area, Mike. If you were to drive somewhere, you're like, okay, I got to go here. How far would you say is like average drive it seems to get to most places?
Basically, it's your mileage is your time frame. You know, so if the course is 40 miles away, it takes 40 minutes to get there because it's all pretty much interstate or 2-lane roads. Not a whole bunch of traffic because we're kind of in the middle of the Rockies, I guess on the edge of them. But yeah, so probably the furthest course we go on a regular basis is Caliber up in Sandpoint, Idaho, and that's about an hour and 15, hour and 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so Birmingham's landscape, it's like, oh, you're going to the doctor. That's 10 minutes away. Oh, you're going to the McDonald's that's next to the doctor's. That's 10 minutes away. You're going here. It's 10 minutes away. Like it's 10 to 15 to get everywhere. But like if you're driving 20 minutes, you feel like you're driving to the other side of the world. So that's what makes me chuckle about like all my disc golf is like 25 to 30 minutes away. Is when I tell people that's what I do, they're always like, I don't know if I want to get into that. I got to drive so far.
Yeah, we've got 10 good courses within 40, 45 minutes. So
that's awesome.
It just depends on what direction you want to drive.
Yeah, that's amazing. Unlike Lynchburg, it's like, oh, how far away? It's 20 minutes.
Yeah.
All right, great.
It may only be 4 miles, but it's 20 minutes away.
Yeah. I just stopped when I first started visiting them. I just stopped asking that question. Like, oh, how far away? It's 20 minutes. I just know. Yeah. Unless you're going between like the warehouse and the store, and then that's 10, and you're like,
that was so
right next door.
Yeah.
So, okay, awesome. Well, Mike, we put you in a field, and we said, hey, we're going to put a basket X amount of feet away from you. How far do you feel like you can consistently and accurately reach that basket on a backhand and a forehand?
As you'll see, the one of the unique discs in my bag, I've gotten that out to 350, but using what's in my bag, predominantly it's right around 280. And I mean, there
Okay.
are discs. It's like the field we throw in when we practice has this invisible barrier that makes sure nothing gets past 300. So 280, 290 is very popular, but out past that, it's hopefully there's not too much of a headwind or something's turning over pretty good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Forehand,
that
I had a good day my first year because I was tracking it on UDisc, and I was just looking at it again. I had at the time it was none of my top 10 throws were forehands, and they were between like 250 and 285. And since that day, I don't know where the forehand went. So I've been slowly working on it. I've been using it for probably 100 to 150 foot up shots or holes, where you have to get around a corner or something, but it's not always successful. I have a problem with turning the disc over, so I've been working on that form and watching some overthrow and a few others, just trying to figure out what the problem is.
Yeah. I hear that. I hear that. And I think that there are lots of people in a similar boat to you, Mike, of their forehand is sitting like your game is so relatable distance wise, I think, to a lot of listeners out there. There can be this belief if you're listening because you hear all these people, you go on disc golf form check websites and stuff like that. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm stuck at like 425, really looking to push that 500. And it's like, everybody's saying that. And you're thinking to yourself, well, maybe I just don't throw far. Yeah. But there are so many people who throwing 300 feet is like, that's it. Like that is the maximum they throw on a good day. They're stuck around there. And so I think I would not even say you're in a bad place, Mike. I think you have great arm speed for the average player for sure. Let's talk putting though. So let's see if are you making up strokes on the putting green? We line you up. We got 10 putts from 15 feet, 10 putts from 25, and 10 putts from 40 feet. How many are you making at each station?
Well, I did a little test last night or yesterday afternoon. It was 25 degrees, no excuse. But from 15, I actually made 10 out of 10. But I know from on the course experience, it's going to be 8 or 9, just because who knows why? But one or two of those out of 10 on the course are gonna either hit the cage or hit the band or do something ugly. Out to 25, I start out pretty good. I was 1 out of 2, 2 out of 4, 3 out of 6, and then I missed the next 4. So 3 out of 10. But I have been getting better at those on the course. I changed my form a little bit, and due to a nice mystery box, I got matching putters because for some reason I could have the same disc, but if they don't look exactly the same, I tend to favor one over the other and throw them differently. And so this has been a good, well, actually subscription box, not mystery box. But at 40 feet, there was a lot of waving at the chains and looking down at the basket, but nothing went in 10 tries. So.
Okay. That is not, like, once again, honest numbers. We appreciate that. We appreciate that a lot. So
honesty helps everyone.
Yeah.
This is not about ego here on this podcast. We all are trying to learn together. So that's awesome. Yeah. And thank you for being a subscription box subscriber. And we did put in some care. We tried to match those up as much as possible in case people really wanted to putt with them.
Oh, it was perfect because I was kind of in a crisis with my putt anyway, and I was trying a few other discs, and but those, same exact color, stamp, weight. It was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Shout out Jason and Nate for putting all those together. They put a lot of care in those.
Yeah, absolutely. So last question, Mike, before we dive into the bag is, what would you say is the best strength of your game?
Strength of my game. Sometimes it's the tee shot. And then when it's not the tee shot, as long as I'm not in too much jail, then my approaches with my condor are pretty good.
I love that. I would say your strength is building the most interesting bag on the planet. That's what I think your biggest strength is here.
And I do actually carry it. I mean, I went to it probably June. I think it was about June. I was watching on DGN, the Seeker Disc Golf, and they had a benchmark test. And they were, I think they were saying, okay, try to throw your putter, 200, your mid-range 300, and then fairways and drivers, the benchmark distance was way out of my range. And so I thought, well, maybe I should just focus on putters and mids. And then maybe at that point, I'll be able to get my arm speed up good enough to tackle the rest of them.
Yeah, I think you did something very smart. I think I'll say this, maybe I did what most people do is like, you want to go throw a driver. You're like, man, I want to throw far, so I want to throw a driver. So I try to throw drivers, and then I'm like, oh, I can't play disc golf. And then you're like, oh, maybe putters and mids, maybe putters, maybe mids. So I think you had a real studious approach to yours. So I definitely respect that.
2 years in the making and a lot of failures.
Hey, Mike, no one needs to know that. No one needs to know that. Like you're just a smart guy that just went for it. But yeah, no, Robbie, I have 100 questions. You're going to have to rein me in today.
Okay,
because
fire away. Get us started, dog.
So let's just, I don't even, let's just say this for people who can't see this right now, you're only audio. Mike has a bag here. He has 2 14 speeds, a 9 speed that happens to be a tilt. The rest are 5 speed or below. And you have what? How many discs in your bag? 2, 4, 6, 8,
22,
10, 12,
I believe, with the putters.
Yeah, 22. And not only that, not only are all of them basically 5 speed and under, minus the 3 I just mentioned, but the man also bags a Condor and a Super Dillo.
Yeah, 2 super classes.
2 Superclass discs. So
and a Scorpion.
Oh yeah, and a Scorpion. Yeah, I skipped over the. So that's great. It's a Halo Scorpion. Love that. You also
get to the pig.
Yeah, and yeah, you definitely like I admire that you're not afraid. You don't care about brand at all. Like you're like, if it feels good and I like it, I'm putting it in the bag. I'm throwing it. I mean, you have Boreum or no
Boreum, yeah.
Yeah, you have a Boreum, you have a Silicone, Texas Ranger, Scorpion, Lone Wolf, Zono S's, you have a Golem, Condor, Swan Reborn, Wizards, a Glitch, Depth Charge from Doomsday Disc. We've not had a single guest, I don't think, that has Doomsday in their bag. So that's kind of wild. So I can see these discs. Shout out Disc RPM. This is what's very cool. Like it's just cool seeing, because some of these I've never seen. Like a Golem by Divergent, I've never seen. I've never touched. So I'm like, I can pull that up. I'm looking at your exact one here. It's a dyed one.
Yeah, it's not. I'll say it's not dyed. It's glows. Yeah.
They're UV, so they're white until they get outside, and then they get the 3 colors on them. So.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So I'm looking at the picture, and the UV is active on the picture that I'm looking at of yours. So that's very cool. So let's do our normal thing now that I'm done like gawking at your actual discs here. And like the actual disc chart, which everyone's going to be able to see up on the screen if you're watching, looks a little crowded in 5 speed and below, but it does, if I look at it this way, it does look like you have a lot of like width covered, which is good. Like it's very thought out. You're not just like throwing a bunch of random mid-ranges in there. And that's maybe why you have a bunch of brands. So I think we'll dig into that discussion in a second. I'm really interested as to, you go from 5 speed to 14. We'll put the tilt. The tilt is its own thing, right? We'll leave it in tilt land. But we go from 5 speed, complete desert, up to 14 speed. So tell me about that. Why?
Okay. As you see in a lot of videos, if you don't have the arm speed, a lot of your discs go the same distance. So my 7, 9, 12, they were all going about 280, 290. Occasionally I'd break 300. Now the reason why I have the Boreum and the unlace is understable. If I can throw it right, it's a Hyzer flip. If there's a headwind, it definitely turns over. But if there's no headwind, that's where I can get some distance. And there's not too many holes where I play where that's even a thing I need. And then there's a couple courses where you do have some open space, and the Boreum is the overstable version, and I like it because the rim doesn't feel 14. It's probably closer to the 12. Like the Destroyer kind of. But I like the rounded feel of it, which a lot of people don't. But That's one where, if I keep it, the nose down and throw it level, I can get it out to 300. And that, there's some holes where that extra 40 or 50 feet makes a difference. But there's not too many times I pull those out because there's usually trees in the way.
Yeah, and the unlaced, by the way, for those of you like myself that had no clue what that was, it's a Vibram disc, 14.6 -5.1. So the dome on that thing must be like 4 inches tall, if I had to guess. Now, is it like a plastic material, or is it? Yeah, the dome's
it's rubber.
Real.
Yeah.
So I wondered if it was like a rubber, like kind of elevation style disc.
Okay. Can't see the bottom.
Where did you find that disc?
Yeah, that was my question. Was as someone who started in 21, where'd you find a Vibram
My buddy
disc?
and I went down to a one of those frozen tournaments in like January. I think it was January a couple of years ago down in Lewiston, Idaho, and there was a local pro down there selling discs, and he had 4 Vibram discs, and I my buddy and I kind of split them. So we got, or I think there was 3 of them. I got 2, he got 1, and so that unlaced is one I pull out every once in a while, and if I can throw it right, it goes pretty well.
So obviously it's a -5.1 is what it's registered here as, but it is a 14 speed. So how does that counterbalance for you, for someone who cannot get up to that 14 speed arm speed? Is it super flippy for you, or does it just have enough turn to make you like kind of get some turn and fade at the end for distance?
I think I'm throwing it with just a touch more than I do my mid ranges, and it works. If I try to yank on it, then it's just gonna. I mean, one, I wouldn't have much control anyway. But yeah, if there's too much of a headwind, or if I yank on it too much, it'll turn right over. Okay. So it's trying to be smooth and just accurate with the release.
So would you say it's a little touchy, even as a 14 speed?
I mean, it's even with like the predominant mid range I use. Some buddies have picked up the same disc and it just turns over on them. And for me, it's the perfect disc. So it's something about the way I throw.
Are you more of like a Hyzer release person, or more of an Hyzer?
I am a Hyzer. It tends to be more Hyzer release. I'm working on throwing flat, but the way it comes out, just because I've got that Hyzer flip down, so a lot of the discs I throw, which sometimes when you're throwing an overstable disc, it doesn't work out as well. So really trying to work on throwing it flat as well when I need to.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to touch on the 14 speeds, and you said the Boreum's just a more overstable version of that for you.
Yeah, it's definitely one where I want to throw it definitely flat or on some Anheuser to get a full flight out of it, because it will. It's a dark blue one, so it's not as overstable as the purple one, the Founders Edition, but it is still stable. It definitely, unless I haven't really ever turned it over, so you can crank on it and it'll come back.
Okay. Robbie, I'll let you jump down to the mid-range discussion here. I was just very curious what your thought process was between 5 to 14.
Yeah. And I think it's a interesting, like, I see where you're coming from, Mike, in terms of if they all fly the same distance, I'm going to grab what feels more comfortable in the hand. And the Boreum definitely has a unique rim, so I can see that fitting that slot. And then the Vibram, obviously, just a different plastic like that is just not available elsewhere. So
it's a cool disc. Sometimes you just want to throw a cool disc too.
Yeah. I mean, I bet if you play with new people in like a local league or something, they're always like, what disc is that?
Yeah, a lot of talking points in my bag.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk the 5-speed Army that you got going on. Specifically, seems like you're a pretty you seem to enjoy the Lone Wolf.
Yeah, that's definitely my favorite disc.
Yeah. Ironically, there is not a Lone Wolf. There's 4 of them.
There's a pack of them.
It's a pack.
So what's the deal with the Lone Wolf? What are these different ones do for you?
Well, the first one I got was the least stable of them, or the most understable, and it was like an X out. And it when you compare it to others, it's a little bit smaller in diameter and a little bit taller. And that one you can throw on a pretty decent hyzer, and it'll flip up and then continue a turn, and it won't come back at all. And then the next one over is a newer one I've gotten. It's kind of flying in between the Bravo and the Lima. And the Lima one, the red one, is like 156, so it's really light too. But where that comes into play is when you have those dog leg rights or fairways that go to the right, and you got to get around trees. I can get the turnover without having to muscle it. You know, I can still throw it just like all the other ones, and it'll just continue. And I've thrown that one out to 270, 280. But predominantly, most of the time when I'm throwing them, I'm getting them out to about 250. So that Delta is similar in flight to the red one. I haven't messed with it a whole lot, but I'm getting more used to it. It's more of a base plastic feel versus like the Bravo and Alpha, which are more premium. The Bravo one, thrown on Hyzer, it flips up and then it'll drift to the right and then just kind of stay straight. And then the Alpha will flip up, push forward, and then just gives me a little bit of fade at the end. And that's throwing them all with the same arm speed. You know, not trying to so it's a kind of a finesse throw, I guess. But it with the tight fairways and the wooded courses, which are predominantly what we have, accuracy is a lot more important than distance on most holes.
Yeah. Okay. I like that a lot. As a big fan of cycling, finding a mold that you can get 4 different shots out of, incredible. And the comfort of, because I think some people might try to argue that, oh, well, you could just, if the Bravo is kind of between, if it sounds like the Bravo kind of lands in the most middle in terms of like what the Alpha is doing as opposed to all the way to the Lima. Okay, you could just throw it on different angles. And I think that's kind of the beauty. That's one of my favorite parts about our game, is that beauty. And for some people, yeah, they're going to take one disc, take that, put it in that slot, and they're going to just work it all the time. And then others are like, no, I like throwing on this angle every single shot. And I have 4 different discs that accomplish those different flights, throwing consistently the same way. So really, really cool approach there. So with that being said, if the Lone Wolf and Alpha plastic, you're throwing it standing up and it's fading a little bit, I'm looking at, you've got 4 other discs more overstable than the Lone Wolf. So how do they fly any different? Like, what are kind of the differences? Specifically, really looking at the Silicon and the Badger.
Okay, the Silicon and Badger are my overstable mids. The Badger I got when I first got into disc golf. I jumped in and got into a subscription box, and I think that was the first disc I got in one of those boxes, and it just feels amazing. I think it's underrated and underrepresented. People that have, hey, let me try that. I mean, they've enjoyed throwing it. So it's, I guess it'd be like a faster zone or a faster, you know, the pig zone harp. So it's a little bit faster, but for me, like the difference between the Silicon and the Badger is the Badger can give me a good skip. So especially if I have low hanging trees and I still need to get around. So we have the big pine trees. So you got to keep it low and underneath. And as it comes around, if it hits the ground, it'll give a good flare skip. Where for me, the Silicon is kind of it'll come in and just kind of sit down. And the plastic's a lot kind of stickier. Where the Badger's kind of I don't remember. I think it's I don't remember what kind of plastic it is, but it's kind of a harder plastic and it skips pretty easy.
Okay, that makes sense. I didn't even think about ground play.
Similar shots, but different finishes.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So would the Zone OS work into that like category, or is it just even? Is it almost like baby tilt?
No, it's a Jawbreaker Zone OS, and it is just thrown out in the field and getting used to it. I mean, I was I was probably pushing 160, 170 straight before it faded, and it wasn't like a super hard fade. Like, you know, if you throw the Z plastic, or not super familiar with all their plastic, but the kind of the clear plastics, a lot of them are a bit beefy. And the Jawbreaker one, it has beef in it, but you know, it pushes pretty straight. And if I were to measure it, it probably only fades about 20, 30 feet maybe at the end of the flight. So it's not, you know, I can throw it, and if I need to get a little bit left at the end, it'll get there, but it won't go so far that I'm going to get myself into more trouble.
Yeah.
And then it's also the forehand flick to kind of get out of jail. So it serves a couple purposes. Yeah.
Does the Zone OS have a lot of ground play for you? Is it kind of hit and stick for you?
No, it sticks pretty good.
Okay. So like the difference maybe between the Badger and the Zone OS, obviously the Badger is going to go a little farther for you, but the Zone OS, you're like, okay, I need this, like a very similar shot here, but I need it to stay. You're going to pick the Zone OS over the Badger probably.
Yeah. Yeah. If I had, you know, if I was about 150 feet out, if I threw it out to have it hyzer back in, I would expect the Badger to skip. And I'd probably throw the Badger further than so the Zone OS would be something where it's a little bit closer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then you have the Golem.
Like control.
Yeah, and then you have the Golem right there. That's kind of like right underneath. Sorry, Robbie, right underneath the Badger. They're kind of really in the same spot. Just Badger's 5-speed, Golem is 4-speed. I'm not super familiar with the Golem. Why are those two in your bag? Are they really different shots? Or are they fighting for the same slot?
No, the Golem and Alpist they're that rubbery, flexible discs, and there's certain courses that are on sides where the basket's on the side of a hill, and either if you're going for a putt or an approach shot with a regular disc, if you hit the cage, a lot of times you'll get the 40 or 50 foot roll down the hill. So those are kind of match the grade of the hill, and even if it hits a tree root or something, more times than not, it's just going to stick on the side of the hill. So it's strictly for specific courses that have, you know, a good deep angle on them where the basket is. Otherwise, I don't.
Yeah, so that makes sense then, because your Golem is kind of where your Badger is. You're very fond of your Badger, so Golem's like, okay, this is a Badger shot, but I need it to not hit and roll away, so I'm going Golem. And then your Alpus is like right underneath your like Lone Wolves, which you love as well, and that's going to be like hey, I need the same Lone Wolf shot, just can't roll away.
Yeah,
is that kind of your thought?
100, 150 feet, you want to just kind of throw it up there, but you don't want it to hit the ground and skip down the hill. So you want just stick.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. So I will say, like, there are two discs that I'm deeply fascinated in. The balance of the two of them, because and that's the Superclass boys. The Condor and the Super Dillo. So Condor, I will go ahead and say, did you know there's champion Condors? Have you seen one of those?
I've seen them on the Innova website, but the DX Condor, I love it. So, and it's I think mine's 186 grams. So it's pretty beefy. And the reason why I got it just because it looked cool and it was different, but I get out on the course. I think the longest shot I've made it in the basket was 165 feet. And I just threw, and with the larger diameter disc, I think it's easier for me to throw straight. Some of the regular putters come around on them too much, and then I'm 30 or 40 feet right or into the woods. And for some reason with that Condor, I can more times than not get that thing to go straight down to where I need it to. And, you know, it's got good glide. You don't have to put a ton of force into it. And, you know, I've hit cage several times and made it in a few. So,
yeah, that's I shot a video, it was either Vlogmas last year or the year before, and I did the DX Condor versus the Champion Condor. And I think a lot of people would look at that disc and be like, oh, it's super full. Like, you're going to throw it on Hyzer, it's going to stand up beautifully like it's going to be like a Frisbee. And it's like, nope, it doesn't do that.
It definitely has some beef. Neutral. And I just find it so easy to keep the nose where it needs to be, keep it level. And, you if you need it on a sweeping Hyzer, sweeping Hyzer, it can do it, but I don't really use it for those shots. It's pretty much, if I'm 150 to 200 feet out and I need to get close to the basket and it's kind of narrow, I can just throw that thing dead straight and it'll hopefully get me within putting range.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So where does the Super Dillo and the glitch on those like floaty approach shots that you're throwing the condor on, where did the Super Dillo and the glitch, where did they work their way into the equation?
Okay, the glitch I predominantly use when you're probably 30 or 40, 50 feet out and you're right behind a tree and you got to get underneath and your regular putter's just going to drop, or you're going to throw it in. Where that glitch, you can just give it a flick and it'll hold because it's got enough glide. It'll just hold 3 or 4 feet off the ground and get up towards the pin. So I don't use it a whole lot, but I'll use it for that. And then the Super Dillo is really, really understable. I mean, you can throw that. It takes a lot of finesse, but if you throw it on about a 45-degree Hyzer, it'll flip up and just go dead. I just a few weeks ago on one of the newer courses we have, I was like, hey, watch this Hyzer flip. And I threw it, and it was a 168-foot hole, and I aced with it. So, but trying to replicate it's been troublesome. But just like the lone wolf, if I've got a short where you'd want, because the problem with throwing an Anheuser shot, a lot of times when it comes down, it rolls away. So with this Super Dillo, I can still throw it on the Hyzer. It'll flip up, turn, and land a little bit softer than, let's say, like the Swan does. Because the Swan, if I get it on too much of an angle when it comes down, it just hits the ground and rolls. Because I don't have a forehand.
Hey, and that's fair. You got to adapt your game somehow. Eventually, you're going to have to throw a right anyways. So, however you get there works. And I love the inclusion of the Superclass. I think in 80 episodes, I can't think of anyone that we've had that has had a Superclass disc in their bag.
I don't think so. Let alone 3 of them.
Yeah. So that's wonderful. I really enjoy it. Brad, I think I'm ready. If you're ready, I'm ready to talk about suggestions. Unless you got any more questions.
No, I think again, it seems really well thought out, Mike, what you've done, even, in the 1 to 5 range. They all make sense. So it'll be interesting. We're gonna try to pull you out of your comfort zone a little bit, because I know you think you can't get past that 300-foot wall, but I think you can. We believe in you.
Yeah. And so we definitely tried to suggest ones that are not as, I would say, as common. Like lots of people are not going to fall into these discs naturally, but really, really great options. Brad, what'd you end up throwing today?
So today I threw the Discraft Mantis, and I threw the Innova It today as well. So the Mantis I had in my bag when I first started, and I didn't know what I was doing, and it just kind of worked its way out of the bag as I started throwing other things. And then the It I've never tried, so I've been wanting to. And again, Robbie doesn't give me a ton of information when we start these, but he did yesterday tell me that the quote is, "I believe I have a mid-range arm speed." So you have mids and lower in your bag. So that's all the information I really got. But after hearing your thought process and what you're doing, I think both these discs could probably work. I think I'm already leaning one way other than the other to get you started. But I guess going down our normal talking points here, the hand feel is good. I will say that it does feel a little bit better in the hand than the Mantis. The flight numbers of the Mantis are 8.4 -2.2. The Innova It is 7.6 -2.1. But yeah, the It definitely feels a little bit better in the hand. They're both. And this is a personal problem. Like that 8-speed category always feels like a little iffy in my hand. I like a 9-speed. I like a 7-speed. 8-speed's fine, but it just always just feels maybe like a tiniest bit less comfortable than a 7 or 9-speed for me.
Yeah, that's the Mantis definitely is one that I would say even majority Discraft throwers are like, Yeah, I don't throw the Mantis. That is so. But looking at your bag, Mike, I was like, I'm not trying to say like Island of Misfit toys, but it is a
I'm not too concerned what other people are throwing.
yeah,
I
and
like that.
it is. You're throwing some unique. Like there are so many discs in here that I'm looking and realizing like we probably are never going to have another bag that has all
The
of these
depth charge
discs,
in
much
it.
less some of them. So,
Yeah.
So that was definitely sort of the hope for it. So, Brad, looking at flight numbers, and knowing we were kind of looking for like easier to throw fairway drivers, is kind of the world we were getting into. Did you have any preconceived like notions before you actually threw them of which one would win?
I definitely did. And it's funny because I've heard a lot about the Mantis as far as like easy distance, even when I heard like way back in the day. That's why I grabbed one. I found it actually at a random shop in Florida when I was down there for work in my past life. I found an Ace Run one. So it was this cool TI one. I ended up giving it to my brother-in-law. Anyway, so the Mantis I've always heard like, oh, it's easy distance. I know Yuli likes the Mantis too, I believe. So I've heard good things about it. And then it's funny, you think as like a beginner disc, but then I've heard people say it's like harder to use than that. It's actually way more flippy. And so I kind of had like good and bad like preconceived notions for both of them. I just didn't really know which way they're going to go. I honestly thought the Mantis was going to win just without throwing any of them, without seeing a bag, without anything. So it was definitely interesting getting out there and throwing it. I didn't realize the Mantis had a 4 glide. Again, that's all subjective, right? But I definitely don't agree with that on the Mantis. I don't think it, because to me, a 4 glide kind of wants to dump a little early, just like you can't get it out there. And the Mantis was pretty, not effortless to get distance out of, but it didn't take a lot of extra effort to try to get to throw it really far. So that was kind of an interesting thought. And like, knowing that we're looking for kind of easier distance, I wasn't going out there and throwing like 80-90% power. I was trying to throw more like 50-60% power and maybe 75 when I got warmed up, just to kind of replicate what we're looking for. So yeah, that's kind of what my thoughts were going out to it. I didn't really throw any forehands. I threw a handful of them. I didn't throw enough to like really get super familiar forehand. I was really focused on backhand. And I will say the Mantis, the -2 is pretty accurate. It's pretty easy. And that's why I asked you at the beginning, like what kind of release you had. Because I think what is going to determine, and I thought this after I threw it in the field, it was what is your release angle is really going to determine what disc I recommend for you. Because I think they both are good for different people. I wouldn't recommend one for both of those like release angles, to be honest with you, because the Mantis will turn pretty easy. Actually, if you give it Hyzer, it will turn, but it will come back. If you throw it flat, it'll just go pretty straight and have a nice fade at the end. If you throw it on Hyzer, it'll kind of carry that angle. If you're, again, I'm not throwing these full power. I'm just throwing them like, let's just call it 60-70% power. So that's the kind of shot that's giving you. I will say, if you throw the it flat, it just really wants to will pick up. It just wants to go. It wants to go pretty far. And it really doesn't have a lot of fade, even on a flat angle. If I give it Hyzer, it's not coming back. It's just going on Annie. It was like, I even picked Champion because I knew that it was probably a little flippier than its numbers like indicated. So I chose Champ just to make sure I had some little extra stability. And even with that, like if I gave it too much Hyzer, it just turns, which is fine.
Yeah.
But the cool thing is if I give it Hyzer, it's very easy to flip up and Hyzer flip and go straight. And again, maybe a tiny bit of fade at the end, but not anything I'd call like overstable. Obviously, it would just flip up to flat. And something I really liked about this disc, I did on accident a few times, is I can throw it very flat and low to the ground and just like carried for a long time. It didn't want to come out of the air. So I would agree with the 6 glide on this disc particularly. As far as distance is concerned, even at like 60-70% power, it was very easy for me to hit that 300-foot wall with both of these. And I was throwing in a headwind. So it was like pretty easy to get these, like not a lot of headwind, just a little bit. Very easy to get these out to 300. If I hit on them a little more, like 75%, I could get them past 300. It was not really a problem for both of these. I will say that it for me was easier to get out to that 300 mark than the Mantis. I did feel like I had to yam on the Mantis a little bit harder to get it to stay in the air and go out there. I think the longer distance or like the more power I put on them, the more I did feel like I had to fight against that forward glide on the Mantis.
Yeah, I so many things to unpack there. I liked the statement of depending on your release angle, because that's something I think over and over again we like. A lot of people will slap a band-aid or try to slap a band-aid on someone who's trying to get into distance drivers or things like that, and they'll be like, "Oh, you need to throw a diamond." Like, just do it. And it's like, well, if they throw on Hyzer, that's not going to be a great disc for them.
Right.
Like we cannot, if you're throwing on an Hyzer, that unlace, even at 14 speed, is not going to go great just because it is that understable. So I like that a lot. Mike, when you're hearing this, are any thoughts crossing through your mind about these two discs in particular?
With the courses we play up here, a lot of them have narrower fairways, a lot of wood, some distinct fairways, but still you don't want to veer too far off left or right. So something that doesn't have a lot of finish would be more successful, I think.
Yeah, and I do feel like the Mantis, like with a little practice, I think I could get the Mantis out there pretty far, but I'd have to throw like a flex line with it. And I think it's an easy, if you're trying to learn a flex line or you have more of like an Anheuser release, I think the Mantis would be a disc with some practice and some tuning. You can get that disc out pretty far. But yeah, to your point, with the courses you're playing and like you being a Hyzer release player, I don't know that that's the best disc in this situation for you. Whereas if you're a Hyzer player and that's your comfortable angle, it really reminds me when you were describing. Let me look at which one it is. I think it was that Bravo Lone Wolf. Like it is maybe like a longer version of that for you. So where you were describing, it would like flip up. It might carry a little bit, but it'll just keep going straight after that. I think that's probably the flight you're going to really find from the it. And then you can also, you seem like a guy that's like kind of comfortable with maybe playing with angles a little bit. So you can maybe adjust. You're like, okay, I know I can throw this far, but I need to adjust my Hyzer angle a little bit, give it a little more Hyzer and throw it out there. The thing I like about the it is I never had to throw it hard to get it to go that far. And I think that's really like the key. You seem like a pretty smooth guy that's like, you want to be smooth. You don't want to be out there ripping like 9 speeds as hard as you possibly can to get him to go 20 extra feet.
That's kind of why I went back down to 5s, because it's, it's like the old golf. You put a driver in your hand and you throw your back out. Or if you got the 7-iron, it's just nice and smooth. So I was like trying to go back to a baseline where it was like, let's work on fundamentals before we work on total distance.
Well, I think you're ready to go up to the 5-iron. I think that it's going to be your 5-iron for you. And I think that's going to be like the next step for you to get into that realm. And I think once you get comfortable with it and learn how to throw it, you're going to be like, okay, it does make a difference. It's not going to be like this might be I will venture to say, I'll make a bet here. I bet that once you start throwing this, those 14 speeds are going to probably not make a whole lot of sense for you anymore. Unless you want the cool factor of having the unlaced, and hey, I'm here for that. But I think it's going to like maybe draw your bag a little closer to one another and maybe let you like kind of feel out some of that fairway style. And you, Mike, you may never be a guy that's like, I'm going to throw 11 and 12 speeds. You may never be that guy. And I think that's perfectly okay. But I think you could definitely be a guy that's like, okay, well, I can see fairways. Because what's cool about this also is what if you need a Hyzer flip straight shot, but you still need a little ground action at the end. Like that might help you venture into that sort of realm as well. Or, even like something a little bit more overstable that you can Hyzer flip and will still finish for you. And you need a little ground play on those straight shots. Like that's where like you're not having to compromise. Okay, do I want ground action or do I want easy capability to keep straight? You might be able to have all of those in like a driver versus just a mid range.
Yeah. Yeah. So would you be interested if we sent this it out to you, Mike, and throwing it and letting us hear how it went?
Oh, definitely.
Awesome.
Come
Well,
on.
look forward to it. Look forward to having you back on a future episode, and we appreciate you, Mike.
Thank you. Thanks for having
All
me.
right. Yeah, see ya. All right, another one.
Another one.
That's the wildest bag I've ever seen in a good way. I like admire it because I don't know that I would be that bold.
Yeah. And I will say, like, talking about I shot a video for Vlogmas this week, talking about top 5 discs I recommend for beginners. And the It actually is the fairway driver that I landed on. And I threw a 164 gram star It and was still, even for me on a 300-foot hole, into some winds, able to throw it on enough Hyzer that it stood up, rode straight, and then I even got it to just fall back down. So it's I will die on this hill of when someone tries to tell me that, oh, this disc is too flippy for me.
Mm-hmm.
Factually incorrect. If Garrett Gerthy can throw wombat threes, then
And so can you.
we can throw some flippy discs. It's just you have to adjust your throw. So I get when a disc becomes like a little unreliable, for sure. Like I'm having to throw it with so much touch and finesse, like a paradox for me personally. I am going to struggle to throw consistent shots with it out on the course, but I can throw a paradox. You put a gun to my head and you're like, all right, Robbie, here you go. For the sake of the channel, you got to throw it. Like you can make it happen. It's just about learning to throw a little different, a little modified. So I think that It is really going to be a good fit. And I love the piece you said, Brad, about like I don't know that your 14 speeds are going to have the same need once you get this. So, and another beautiful part about if you enjoyed that bag and you're wanting to check it out later, you're an audio listener. One thing I want to make sure we try and never do is just be like every week, like, oh yeah, come watch the YouTube so you can see this bag. All right. So one of the best places you can go check it out is Disc RPM, which is our bag sponsor. And so they have put together an amazing website that has so many cool features on it. And you're going to be able to see Mike's bag there. Now, the funny part is I totally did not connect these dots until right now. The episode 79, also Mike. We went Mike back to back. But this Mike, his episode will be at the top, Disc RPM, so you'll be able to go check it out, see his bag, see some unique features. And Brad, you got a bag that we want to shout out from our community.
Yeah, I'm going to shout out Derek's bag here in the bag community. His bag automatically caught my eye because he has a Charmander dyed PA5. He has a Charmeleon dyed Glory and a Charizard dyed Glitch. So, and he has some other, like, I think Pokemon, like, alluded dyes in there as well. But very cool. That's my favorite thing about Disc RPM is seeing everyone's, like, unique bag. And as someone who carries some Pokemon dyes in his bag, I have to shout out Derek's because those are pretty sick, especially that Charmeleon on the Glory. Yeah. Man, that thing is so good. Beautiful. So yeah, make sure you all join the In the Bag community. You are just piling in there. That's awesome. I love seeing everybody. You know, I've seen some of you comment. I've seen some of you send stuff through email. Robbie has as well. It's awesome putting like faces to names, or really like your bag, like your disc golf bag, to like who you are. And like, you know, it's very humbling. I see a lot of In the Bag influence in these bags in the community. So thank you all for all that support. We appreciate all of you. And again, best part about this is completely free. It's very easy to use. And David and the team over at Disc RPM are catering this specifically for you and us and our community. So there's a stats update on the top of the page now that we can all see, which is very cool. And mine and Robbie's bags are there. We're going to get the other guys to put theirs in there soon. So we appreciate you all. Thanks, Disc RPM, for that.
Absolutely. So without further ado, you get your Disc RPM bag. Like you get your bag in Disc RPM, you got some great stuff, and you're like, oh, well, now that this is not in the bag, you got to store it somewhere. Or if you're trying discs out, especially if you're trying to find what's new in the warehouse, and you're like, hey, look at all these awesome discs, got to have a place to hold them. And that's where Hyzer Disc Racks coming in clutch. Really, really excited for this partnership with Hyzer Disc Racks. Brad, have a storage issue. I would agree. I have used so many different products. I've used boxes. I've tried to build my own racks, things like that. Here's the thing. When you try to go build a PVC rack, it sounds super cool. You're like, this is going to be great. And then you go to put together this PVC rack. When you count the cost, the labor, all of that, you're like, wow, I basically just spent over $100.
It's ugly.
Yeah,
it's ugly
like
too.
it is not affordable. And even me, like I tried to make it nice, and I spray painted them black, Brad. Like it's a cool looking little rack. It had really cool design. You can put a bag on the top. I did all that, and then when I finished, I was like, "What am I doing? Like what are we doing?" And I still just have so many frisbees laying out there. It looks bad. My wife is like, "I can't be in this room." Because it just looks like chaos. Hyzer disc racks coming in with a solution, with a beautiful solution. I love the description you used, Brad. You described it as what? It is
it's a piece of furniture versus like just some makeshift thing you're trying to get, or a shoe rack you bought from Walmart, or even, I mean, there's even some like other companies out there that are offering like metal ones, but they look just kind of industrial and just, they look like you're in a, they just don't fit in your home. Like this is something that, I have one for the warehouse that have like some of my collection on it, and it's great. It makes my desk look awesome. And, my wife actually requested I take all of my discs out of the house and put them at the warehouse since I'm there majority of the time. And after seeing that, she's like, you can have one of those in the house if you wanted to, in our storage room, out in like our mudroom area, because it looks nicer. Listen, I know what you're going to say. It is expensive.
Yeah.
Expensive is relative. This is a great, and what's nice is you don't have to buy this huge rack all at once. It's a modular system. And being a Lego fan, I'm a modular fan.
Yeah.
You can buy one at a time. It's very affordable. They're easy to put together, and the quality is there. Like, do not give up on quality. Quality is important with this, and it's going to last you. Unless you like drop kick this thing, it's going to last you like forever. There's nothing that's going to rust or get destroyed. It's good quality. It's made in the U.S. It's made in the same town as the guy that owns Hyzer Rack, Shannon, shout out. So make sure you check it out. Give it an honest opportunity. If you're like, have someone, a disc golfer on your Christmas list, and on their Christmas list, they want a storage solution, it is a little more expensive. Go with this. You also can get them laser engraved with like your favorite logo. In the bag logo is available. Robbie C logo is available. Foundation logo is available. I mean, and you can customize them. He'll customize them for you too. So make sure you give it a chance. Throw what you heard out the door. Sometimes, like, expensive is like a very loaded word. It is if it's not backed up by quality. And this is definitely, I would argue he could charge more. I'll say that.
Yeah. No, I haven't seen them. I completely agree. Like the quality is so nice. And I mean, there's a reason that most Pro Tour players, their choice of storage solution is Hyzer disc racks. So super grateful for them. But when they get these racks, Brad, they're going to need to put some frisbees on them. And so where are they getting those?
All right.
FoundationDisc.com.
FoundationDisc.com. You're going to see a lot of like stock restock over the next week from us. I've got frisbees everywhere over there waiting to get put up. I've got MVP restock. I've got Innova restock. I've got Discraft restock. I believe I got Discmania in yesterday, which is very cool. Some cool Eagle stuff. That will be out soon. I've got some extra time lapses I'm putting up. I've got stock run cicadas and ESP cicadas now that are going to be going up. There's a lot of stuff going to be going up in the next couple of weeks. We're just like kind of backfilling now from Black Friday. So be patient. If your favorite brand or disc is not up there, it will be in the coming week. But as always, the recently restocked portion of our website is your best friend. That'll just keep you updated on what's going up and what we have. Something I'm really trying to concentrate on as we're ordering is I want to make sure, like Discraft, I'm pretty sure we have every one of their molds that's available right now, and almost every plastic, if not every plastic. Now, we may not have like 400 of that plastic, but I'm trying to give people more of a variety, more plastic. And same thing with Innova, same thing with Discmania, same thing with Trilogy and MVP, just really trying to give a variety for people. So make sure you check that out. Also, our subscription box for by the time you hear this, you're not going to be able to get the November one anymore, but December one's going to be awesome. Can't wait for I'll spoil it. It's going to have a custom stamp one in this one, and it's very cool. Never been done before, so very excited about that. And I just want to say thank you to all of you for shopping with us for Black Friday, Cyber Monday during that weekend. We had an amazing week. Got to put a lot of cool mystery boxes out. 12 Days of Discmas box was a surprise on Monday. And, hey, in a world where, the economy is up and down, you guys are always supporting us, and we're just very grateful. We can't do anything we do without you. Thank you for supporting In the Bag. Thank you for supporting FoundationDisc.com. Thank you supporting Robbie C. And just thank you. It's really fun doing this, and look forward to talking to you all soon. And I hope you get everything you want from FoundationDisc.com. And when you get it, I hope it's good. I hope it goes straight in the bag.
Come on. We'll see you for episode 81.